So tonight, Andrew and I are going to talk with you about something called lean. And this is something that I know, are both very passionate about. Something that we believe there's a message here that's important for people to hear. And it's a topic that has really inspired me to spend pretty much the last 7 years of my life teaching about lean, researching lean, and writing this book about lean. So I'm really pleased that you're here, and we'd love to have the chance to tell you the story. So really, lean is very much about engagement. So we hear that term a lot in business, right? Engagement. We want our employees to be engaged. We do surveys to see how engaged they are. We buy books and learn how to motivate them to become engaged. And engaged employees really means that they have energy, that they are committed to what they're doing, and they have pride in what they're doing. So certainly it's a very important thing for us to have engaged employees. I like to think of it as basically these are people that really care about what they're doing, and they take ownership. They take ownership in what they do and how they contribute to their organization. So what's kind of disturbing is that when you look at Gallup polls, which have consistently shown that in the United States, 2/3 of workers feel disengaged. Only 1/3 feel engaged. Now, half of the workers feel disengaged, and 1 out of 6 feel actively disengaged. So what does that mean? Well, disengaged workers basically will come to work, put in their hours, they'll do the job, but they don't really care. They're not going to go the extra mile. Actively disengaged workers, these are dangerous people, frankly. They're hostile. They are outspoken. They will sometimes sabotage your organization. They are a liability. And I'm sure many of you have met and know some of these people, right? So I think it's safe to say that we have an engagement crisis in this country. And I suggest that this crisis is getting even worse. And here's why. Because engagement is becoming even more important today than it ever has been. Now, why is that? Well, for one thing, we have social media, and we have these guys. Smartphones, right, that all have cameras. So what's happening is that our service faults, our problems, are being spread immediately throughout the world. And I'm sure most or all of you have known the recent incident at United Airlines, right? Okay. Passenger being drugged down the aisle, screaming, kicking, blood on his face, and caught on camera, and within seconds spread around the world, right? Now, within a day or two, that incident being spread that way cost United Airlines more than $1 billion in market value, and certainly was a long-term hit on their reputation. So I have to ask, were those United Airlines engaged, those employees that were involved in this incident, were they engaged? Did they take ownership in this incident? Do you think they did something that they felt in their heart was right, common sense, take care of this passenger in the way they should be taken care of, and even take care of the companies in the way it should be taken care of? No, they basically said, that's the company policy, that's what we're going to do. Okay? That's disengagement. So I think it's clear, high quality, consistent service in the field requires engaged employees. Policies and procedures are fine. We need them. But they're not enough, right? They're not enough. You have to have caring and thinking people who are going to carry out those policies and apply those procedures in the field, in situations, adapt to situations that arise in the field that you can't always predict. Now, the other reason that engagement is getting more and more important has to do with our younger workforce, our millennials. And millennials basically need to feel engaged. Millennials don't really like to be told what to do and just go do it. They need to believe in what they're doing. They need to have a purpose. They need to feel they have a belief. So if they don't like and don't agree with the policy and procedures of the company, they will more than likely move on, just go somewhere else. And it turns out they're actually leaving in droves. The Gallup polls have shown that millennials are 3 times more likely to leave their current job than non-millennials. So if you look at this new kind of transparency and this new kind of worker, then I think it's clear that going forward, if you want to be successful in a service business, you must have engaged employees. There's no option to that. Now, I've been interested in engagement for many years. 20 years I spent in senior management in industry. I had 10 years as the owner and CEO of a wholesale distribution company. So I can tell you, I've seen engagement from the trenches. And I know what an engaged employee, how valuable they can be, sometimes in surprising ways. And I know how damaging a disillusioned and disengaged employee can be. Now, as the business owner, when having basically bought a business that had gone out of business, I was faced with the task of really growing this company, and I recognized the importance of engagement. But it was not easy. You know, this is not easy stuff to do. But I'm very proud to say that we, as a team, were able to put that engagement together, and you know, many of the team members are sitting here at on this row here because it really was a family business. And so thank you, all of you who were part of that. But we, through building an engaged workforce over 10 years, we went from basically an out-of-business company to one of the most respected and profitable companies in our industry. It led to a sale of the company to a large strategic buyer in Europe, and actually freed me up to do what I always wanted in life, which was to go back and get a PhD. So I did that, had a great 5 years of my life exploring the world of academia, whole new world of ideas. It really was a very, very enjoyable time of my life. And so I always wanted to get a PhD and become a professor. So in 2009, I joined the faculty of Nova, and here I am. And I've been very blessed to be part of this organization. I truly have. This is an unusual place, and it's been a great journey. So when I first started here, I began teaching in the entrepreneurship program, the MBA program. And of course, with my experience, I recognized how important engagement was, so I wanted to teach it. So I could, teach from my experiences and tell war stories that, many of my colleagues like to tell, who many also have industry experience. But, in an MBA program, that's really the icing on the cake. You need the cake. You need the content. What is it you're going to really teach? What's the basis for engagement? So in looking for that cake, I made 2 very important discoveries. The first discovery I made was I learned about Toyota. And that Toyota has an amazing system for engaging their employees. Now, one of the measures of engagement for employees is how many suggestions they offer on a typical basis. Now, I don't know in your companies and the companies I've been involved in, a typical employee might suggest once or twice a year, right? Andrew,
I actually think it's much, much lower.
Probably much lower, right? Yeah. Thank you. It's reality. I'm trying to be nice, but yeah, right.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Implemented suggestions. The last time I read it, it's 0.3 per associate per year. So
really, look at that.
That was a national survey of implemented suggestions. So you might be right. It might be a little bit more that they suggest, but actual implemented is much, much lower.
Interesting.
And that's not shocking to know that 90% of all associates' suggestions in traditional business are not implemented.
That's another thing. Yeah, it's one thing to ask for. And what happens when you don't implement them, They're done suggestion. So at Toyota, guess how many suggestions per year each employee gives? 90. 90. So think of it. Every employee is giving a suggestion once every 3 working days. Okay, that's engagement, all right? And
wait, sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, he's going to keep me honest. Go ahead.
That's 90 implemented.
Oh, that's implemented.
Yeah.
My God.
So suggested could be.
It could be more, a lot more.
Could be one a day.
Wow.
I don't know.
So, and you know, the way that that has translated into the success story of Toyota, I think, is well known. I don't need to go over that. So it's been one of the great corporate success stories of the last 50 years. So how do they do that? How do they engage their employees like this? Well, there's been a lot of books written about it. Andrew, I know you've been to tons of conferences. And, you know, you've been to more places than I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm a Toyota groupie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I follow them wherever they go, and yeah, I've read every book known to man about Toyota. But it's a truly special company. But more importantly, I think if you visited their facilities or factories around the world, it's a phenomenal culture. It's good people, really trying to do the right thing every day, fully engaged.
Yeah.
You know, they're not perfect. If they were here, they'd tell you that they're far from 100% engagement. But man, they're up there.
In a minute, I'm going to give Andrew a chance to talk and talk about City Furniture, because that's, you know, a really important part of the story. But so, in trying to, from my perspective, understanding how Toyota does this, I actually think it's pretty simple. I think what they've understood is this: two things. One is they've understood that the key to engaging employees is to empower them. To empower them. But to empower them with trust and respect, and that naturally builds engagement. Now, they're not the only ones that have discovered that. I'm sure many people in this room recognize the importance of empowerment, okay? But you probably also recognize, as I have, having been in the trenches, that it's not so easy to do this, to actually pull it off, right? So what Toyota did that was so unique is they came up with a way of empowering. They call it their Toyota production system. And this way of empowering is a set of tools, a method whereby with relatively simple, visual, common sense tools put in the hands of the workers themselves can improve their own process. That's what's different, this special method, okay? So basically, Toyota Production System, it's basically a means or a way of deploying and channeling empowerment in a way that builds engagement. Now, Toyota's system, you know, they've been building it pretty much since World War II. And at this point, it's pretty much spread throughout manufacturing, right? I'd say the reports that more than 90% of manufacturers use what we now call lean. As it started expanding, Toyota Production System more generally was called lean. Sometimes lean manufacturing, lean production, lean operations. The term lean was used. So it spread throughout manufacturing. More recently, it started spreading into service areas, especially healthcare. But still relatively rare. It's still a bit unusual to find lean in service industries. But we recognize that it is something that is well beyond manufacturing. For example, recently, McKinsey & Company referred to lean as one of the great management ideas of the past 50 years. So there's really something here, but it's still not really catching on. Now, the other critical discovery I made when starting teaching at Nova was City Furniture. Truly critical discovery. I discovered that right in our own backyard, we had a company who's not in manufacturing, who's in service, who is doing a fantastic job in learning about and growing and building on lean. And very early on, Andrew Koenig, as well as Keith Koenig, were so kind in bringing my students in. We visited every class. We would go and visit there, hear from the horse's mouth, see what was going on. Now, I was there at least twice a year, usually more often, and it was amazing for me to see, because we've lived through this for the last, I've been with you, 7 years now. So I've seen the change. It is just unbelievable. Every time I go, it's like dramatic, okay? And it's one thing, in my classes for Professor Hines to talk about lean, but when you take the students there, then they truly believe. Then they become believers, right? I mean, those of you that have been there, can you attest to that? But here's the surprising thing. When I started my classes, most of my students, I'd say like 90% of my students, had never heard of lean. Never heard of it. So that's it. And these are working professionals. This is not somebody just coming out of high school. And And so basically, the reason for that is that really most of the books are still based on Toyota. They're still manufacturing oriented. They try to make it adaptable, but they use still manufacturing concepts, examples. It's really hard to grasp in service if you're in a service business. The other problem is there's a lot of confusion out there. There's a confusion about the word lean because there's Lean Six Sigma. Well, is lean the same as Lean Six Sigma? Well, no, it's not. Is lean the same as, well, our business needs to be lean and mean, so is lean about downsizing? No, it's not. Okay? But this confusion exists to this day. And when I first got into this, hey, I was the instructor. I was confused by all of this. So really, over the next 7 years, I worked closely with Andrew at City Furniture and Keith. Nova joined the MIT consortium of lean universities who were teaching lean. About 40 universities were teaching it. Visited with lean practitioners, consultants, visited companies. I mean, did whatever I could to learn about lean from all different sources. I gave my students the best books that were available, but they just weren't really hitting the mark for my students who were mostly in service industries, right? So I began writing notes and then eventually decided, you know what, I really need to work this into a book. And that's where this book came about. So this book really is the result of that 7 years of work. It was just released in December, but this is really kind of the official sort of kickoff of the book. And so during this time, Andrew and I and City Furniture and I have really been on parallel paths. You know, I've been teaching this, trying to make sense of it, doing research on it and writing about it. And while I'm doing that, Andrew and company are out learning lean, practicing it adapting it in ways that I can tell you are unique throughout the country and probably the world. He's going to tell you about areas they're applying lean that have never been done before. They're really breaking ground, so we are so happy and proud to be associated with you guys. So, and after doing all this, they've come out of the Great Recession, you know, stronger than ever. I would say you're one of the strongest companies in South Florida at this point. So with that, let me turn it over to you. Stop yapping. I'll let you talk about City and. Oh no, I'm not done. Go ahead.
You gave me a goal, 10 minutes, so I'm going to make sure I hit my target.
Metric.
So my name is Andrew Koenig. My father is Keith Koenig. So let's just get that out of the way, all right? When I came out of college in 2005, I remember, you know, being very curious of Japanese management thinking, culture. I really liked how, you know, the Japanese society was more collective, and Americans are typically individualistic, and everybody knows about that. And you know, I think a lot of us. I'm at the tail end of the millennials, okay? Sometimes we get bad raps, but I think a lot of us really want collaboration, want teamwork, involvement. It's not about the individual, it's about all of us, you know? So I really aspire to that, and I wanted to see how they applied that to Japanese business methodology. And so I decided to take one of my spring breaks in college to Toyota City, Japan. So at the time, Keith was real tight with Jim Moran. Everybody knows JM Lexus, unbelievable organization down here. So Jim Moran got me a tour at Toyota City in the heart of Toyota's manufacturing area and headquarters. And I got to see their best facility at Toyota. At the time, it was by far the most productive, most efficient, most profitable manufacturing facility in the world. And at the same time, they had one of the most highly engaged associates, you know, easy 90 suggestions per associate at that facility. So long story short, I spent about a week there and really just was blown away. And with their culture, with just their systems, their efficiency, their productivity. And at that time, I really researched, you know, I looked at Toyota's financial performance and metrics, and then I compared that to GM, Ford, Chrysler, a lot of the best in America, and you'd be shocked. I think in 2005, Toyota was the value of GM, Ford, Chrysler, Honda, and maybe 2 others. So the value of the company was like 6 other major automobile manufacturers. And I said, what's going on here? So had to go see, fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the Toyota production system, the philosophies. They're very common sense. They're very pro-associate, pro-employee. It is all about mutual trust and respect and empowering the associates. And I loved it. And going into the business world, I want to be a part of that. And so in 2005, I came back and say, hey, Keith, and if he was sitting here, I'd say it right in front of him. He's on a flight, so he can't. This isn't recorded, right?
No. Yeah.
So no, it was interesting because the business methodologies that he was teaching me at the dinner table were almost opposite of what I learned from Toyota. And it was kind of hard coming back and say, hey, Keith, your business that you've grown, at that time in 2005, we had grown our business from 40 million to about 340 million. So 800% growth in 12 years or 11 years. And you have to tell your father that his management system is wrong. That conversation's not going to go well. Long story short, what do you think? He said, yeah, let's do the lean conversion. No, he didn't. He didn't agree with me at all in 2005. 2006, I don't know if everybody remembers down here, but we can kind of see the recession coming in South Florida. And I remember the conversations at the dinner table getting more and more exact, or more like, wait a minute, he might be buying in on this. 2007, we knew the recession was coming. I think everybody did at that time down here. And he was very interested getting lean. And at that time, I convinced him to read some books. The books probably we both read at that time that were more manufacturing based. But what I love about Keith is that he's the humblest leader in the world. He's the best CEO we could ever work for because he's not afraid to say, I don't know. Or, yeah, you're right, that is a problem I need to fix. He's very, very humble. And that's really important to being a good lean leader. So on a dime, he agreed that we needed to go down a lean conversion. And in 2007, we found a consulting company that had practiced lean, been taught by Toyota, true Toyota leadership, and in the 80s. And long story short, the books that Keith and I read, and that what I saw at Toyota, the consultant helped us kind of visualize the problems that we were applying in our business. And I'll cut to the chase. We basically have been on this lean journey since 2007. And I got some coworkers back there that have been with me since the beginning. And it's been very hard. I'm not going to lie. Very, very, very hard. This is a different way of thinking for traditional management. And we had to rethink the way we did things. We had to reteach the way we do things. And to this day, giving empowerment to the associates at the bottom level to make all the most important decisions is very, very scary to some that have held control for so many years. And so it's been a bit of a long journey, but a very successful one. Our first big event, we called it, was a big Kaizen event. We did it in one of our departments called chair assembly. We build chairs for our drivers that they take out on the road. I want to say the productivity improvement was like a couple 100%, maybe 300 or 400%. The space reduction in the warehouse was almost maybe 50, 75%. It was probably way safer, better quality, you name it. That same department's probably 1,000% more productive and probably 95% less square footage to this day. And we've done multiple Kaizens. But that was the first Kaizen we did in 5 days that really kind of we stepped back and said, oh my gosh, we think we got something here. Another process we did right after that was how the product flows in and out of our facility. And a overnight department that pulls our product and stages our product for all of our deliveries. We have about 800 a day. So we got about maybe 30 guys coming to work tonight. We used to have about, I want to say, up to 9 supervisors and managers involved in that process. Tonight we'll have 1. And no, we didn't fire all 8. Okay, stop. You can't do that with mutual trust and respect. So Long story short, we did tons of Kaizen events. We did tons of process improvement, applying the tools, the thinking, the methodology. We implemented a suggestion system. To this day, me and my colleagues are pushing our team as hard as possible to get ideas from the associates. A couple months ago, we had a $100,000 suggestion. It was the cafe one. Why didn't I think about that? There was it's a gift card. Long story. But it's unbelievable when you empower all your associates to come up with ideas to solve the problems on their own. It's also very comforting for leadership. Why does leadership want to be responsible for all the ideas, all the problem solving? And it's that's very overwhelming and overburning. And I'll get to the big highlights. I think pre-lean. I think in 2005 we were over 100% turnover per year in our operations department. This year we'll probably be, I think it was closer to 150%. This year we'll be closer to like 36%. It's a nice 75% reduction. It's very hard to figure out how to make a delivery driver's day easy. It's hard work. But we're still problem solving. We're going to figure it out. Our quality's never been better. Our returns to our customers used to be 14%. Now it's around 7%. Our head count, we just actually looked at this a couple weeks ago. In 2005, we'll do $380 million, maybe $400 million this year in business. And right now we have about 150 less people than we did when we were a $340 million company. So, and again, no, we didn't fire anybody, okay? No. So, but what that allows us to do as we get more efficient, we get safer, safeties, our workers' compensation is probably down 80% what it was in 2005. So accounting really liked that one. So did HR. So what do you do with all this freed up cash or freed up, and thanks to Keith, and he really buys into the lean thinking. We reinvest back into our associates. We reinvest in better services for our customer. We reinvest in better facilities, whether it's better equipment, better work environment, better technology. So I think what we've done really, really well is we continuously improved, empowered our associates, implemented great suggestions. We've reinvested right back into our associates, and that allows us to just go through this perpetual cycle of process improvement, continuous improvement. If we were a very cheap organization, we save $100 and Keith puts it in his pocket, or we don't invest back in the team. Who's going to want to do that again? So we've done some amazing things, but I think the most proud thing I think we all feel so happy that we've been able to do. The people that have stuck around with us over the last 10 years, if you talk to them pre-lean, and the work environment was then to what it is now, it really means a lot when a lot of the associates tell us that we're doing a great job. We're far from perfect. We got plenty of problems, but our culture is as strong as it's ever been. Toyota says they've been on this journey for 70 years, and they only think they're halfway there. And they're by far me and a few others in the back were just in their warehouse in Ontario, California, 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's the best warehouse I've ever seen. So, but when we came back, and it was really cool. We felt like we're not far off. We really do, and it was really cool. Our culture is very strong. Far from perfect, but we're on our way and making some great progress. And I think all the people and the associates appreciate that. And what I love is new hires. New hires nowadays, they'll tell you in their first 30, 60, 90 days that they've never been to a company that is in your face saying, how can we improve? What problems did you have last week or today? What suggestions do you have? Do you want to be participating in an event where you can impact your department and make it better? What do you think? And I think we almost ask so many questions to our associates, our new associates, that they're not used to this. It's like it's a culture shock. It's like, wow, why do you care? It's like, I care because you know better than I do. And it's been very special. So I'm real happy.
Thank you.
I missed my target.
Oh, no.
It's 2 minutes late.
You can see
we
how...
have same-day delivery. We have to be on time.
Okay. All right. That's all right. You're getting there. You can see how lucky we are to have these guys here. It's just unbelievable. Thank you. I can never thank you enough. Let me just talk a little bit about the lean system and kind of how it relates to the book and how maybe you can learn and start your lean journey if you're interested in doing this. Basically, the book is about engagement. What I've tried to do in the book is to really pull out the essence of lean, the essential parts, so that we can build a bridge from manufacturing to service, because that's a tough bridge to make. And so rather than just describing Toyota like most books do, what I've done is I've kind of built up a model of a system of management from scratch, using the fundamental principles of lean, but referring to it in terms of general management practices and theories of operations, org development, and even psychology. And so by doing that, I think I've ended up with a fairly simple but complete, a very understandable book from the perspective of the business leader. This is really meant to be an executive read, but it also provides tools and details that you can use to start implementing it.
Can I jump in?
Yes, absolutely.
So when David told me he was writing a book, I kind of got nervous because there's books out there that talk about lean, but sometimes we take it very serious. We live this every day. We really know what lean is, and I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, this is hard. This is very hard to put down on paper. But after reading the book, both Keith and I were talking like a couple weeks ago. We were really, really proud of how you nailed the philosophy, you nailed the thinking. So not easy to do, not easy to do. So really, really, really good job. So you've listened well.
Thank you. Well, you've been a great teacher. They're an unbelievable laboratory. They really hand it, but give you tools so you can actually apply it. There's a 7-step method even if you want to get into a little more detail. And when you do your first lean event, if you're interested, it's a program to help you do that. So I'm really hoping this will be maybe your first book on lean, but I also am hoping it's not your last book because it's meant to just get you started. The way I describe lean, it's really a system of management. It's a system of management that has 2 pieces to it. There's method and there's culture. Now, what's really interesting, this is the only really management or organizational system I have found that combine these two. So lean combines kind of the harder technical industrial engineering, systems engineering side of the world with the softer management style, cultural, how do you treat people side. And these 2 sides, the culture and the method, actually work together and reinforce each other. And the story that Andrew was telling, the chair assembly story, I think really brings this home because, of course, I have the Keith version of it. And in setting up this chair assembly where they would put together pieces into the basically dining room chairs, they would bring in, as I understand, visitors, right, from other furniture companies. And they'd come in and look at how they were doing this. And these people would say, hey, that's a great process. That's about the best I've seen. And it turns out it was designed, the original process, by an industrial engineer from a top US engineering school. And so, as Keith likes to say, it was designed by the smartest guy in the room, right? Okay. So what happened then, they organized a Kaizen team, which is the team of people who are doing the work. One facilitator, the consultant, who came and showed the employees how to apply the lean tools. Okay? Here's a process that they thought couldn't be made any better. And in 1 week, no engineers, all the people doing the work, one facilitator, they had these huge improvements, 50, 100% or more in that very first time, improvements to productivity. But here's the thing. So that's the method. So the method or the tools and so forth, productivity gains. But where does the culture come in? That same event began building a culture of empowerment that led to engagement. Because what do you think those workers were saying after they did this and were so proud of it? Hey, that was my idea, right? That was my idea. Mm-hmm. So that's how the lean system not only improves the productivity, but improves the culture, improves the attitudes, okay, all together. So those people then began to take pride in what they did. I would say the best way to get, I'm talking to my students, what's the best way to get buy-in, right? We always want buy-in. Well, you can get people involved, that helps. You can try to sell them on an idea, that's even maybe better. But the absolute best way to get buy-in is if it's their idea, right? Then they own it. So that's the power of the method. Now, basically, and really briefly, the method, the fundamentals of the method are, when you look at a work process, only do things that your customer cares about. That's it. Only do things your customer cares about. If the customer doesn't care about something, we consider it waste, and we want to reduce it or eliminate it. Okay? So when you apply that philosophy and use these simple, but very powerful tools, 3 things happen. You produce results faster. Why faster? Because now you're not doing a lot of things that you used to do. You're in these cumbersome processes. Number 2, you produce your results better, higher quality. Because what are you doing? You're focusing on the customer. The whole method is intensely focusing on the customer and doing what the customer wants. And then lastly, you're more productive and less costly because you've gotten rid of a lot of waste. Okay? So that's the method. The culture, actually there's quite a few lean techniques for culture building, like the Kaizen teams, the Kaizen events. Those are basically management techniques, way of building the culture. And it can be a little confusing when you first look at all this. And what I've done in the book, I really came after a number of years, recognize there's really 4 fundamental functions going on here. So I've tried to organize and present those techniques in the book according to the 4 functions. The 4 functions are goal setting, training and development, then you have team building, and you have management style. So if you think about it, in order to empower workers, you first have to set goals. So there's specific lean techniques, Hoshin planning, that is used to set the goals, but communicate them very clearly so the empowered workers know where to go, they have structure. Secondly, there's tools and techniques for training and development. One of them is TWI, training within industry. I know Andrew's an incredible proponent of that, one of the great training tools available to us. So you can't just throw employees out there and say you're empowered. We have to train them, give them the opportunity to succeed. And then we have to organize teams, like in these Kaizen situations, because in Lean, the empowerment and the action of the employees happens in a teamwork situation. It's not everybody on their own. So very much of a kind of a partnering attitude. And then lastly, the management style, really important, and as Andrew talked about it, this is where you have to think differently as a manager. Very struggle to try to get people to understand that you can't be a micromanager and be in lean and empowering, okay? you have to understand that if you're going to empower people, you have to be more of a coach and a mentor to reinforce the empowerment, okay? You can't be a commander and a controller. So once you kind of understand all that, then it really becomes fairly simple, clear. If you're in a small firm, you can apply lean in a very simple and informal way. And as many of my students know, have already started applying it in their businesses. As long as the leader, the entrepreneur, the owner understands lean, is committed to it, you can do it. It's not a huge, costly affair. Now, in a larger company, it gets more difficult because there's more employees. Like when you guys came in, how many employees did you have when you started?
1,300.
That's a lot of people that are thinking one way. An established culture, it can be very tough. And as I know Andrew can attest to. Go ahead.
My favorite is, so I was hanging out with some people in a lean conference, and they were working for Apple and Intel. And their challenge was, how do you convince your CEO when you just hit record profitability that their production methodology, this was the Intel guy, is completely wrong? It's super hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're in a larger company, I know many of you understand the value of empowerment, but you may be saying, how do I really pull this off? This is not easy to do. You may be happy with the way things are going, and you may be skeptical about extending a lot of trust to employees, right? You say, well, David, you don't know my employees. I go, well, I don't know your employees. But what I would say is be careful, because oftentimes success is your worst enemy, okay? Just because you're doing well now, especially in today's world, doesn't mean you're going to be doing well in the future.
So I have to jump in.
No, jump in.
2007, 2008 was the worst time of my life. And again, a few of us went through this there in the back. We had 4 rounds of layoffs. So, we grew 800%, very profitable company, but in, a year and a half, the Great Recession hit, and we had to lay off, hundreds of people. So I think that message, I want to tattoo 2008 to my forehead so I never forget it. Success is also very dangerous. Watch out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you think things are going well, remember, you're going to need engagement going forward. So if you're not doing this, your competitors likely are.
Sorry
No,
to jump,
go ahead.
but in 2008, everybody knows Ford, GM fired tons of people. How many people did Toyota fire? Come on, let's hear it. 0. So they took a financial hit for several months, idled a lot of their factories, did not lay off one person, and redirected everybody's efforts to training and community service and Kaizen events. And because they didn't lay off everybody, now, and then I don't know if you remember 2011, 12, 13, what was it, Cars for Clunks or Clunks for Cars or whatever? Cars, the business turned around very quickly. Who was most prepared for that? Toyota.
Well, I tell you, an interesting follow-up to the United Airlines story is, about 10 days after the United Airlines incident, they came out with 10 actions that they took in response to this. And you know what? Many of those actions had to do with empowerment and engagement. So what they did, it used to be $800 that a gate agent could give to authorize, was authorized to give to kick somebody off a plane or ask them to get off. It was raised to $10,000. The flight attendants now have apps. So if there's some issue with service, they can give frequent flyer miles on the spot. They're authorized to do it. They are empowered to do it. United Airlines is now training on a regular basis, training their frontline employees how to deal with these difficult situations. And they've also formed what they call customer solutions teams to deal with displaced passengers in airports. So, here's a large, well-established, maybe with not such a great reputation, company that is recognizing empowerment. We need to move in this way. We can't survive without engaged employees. Now, they've got a rough road to go, but at least they're starting. Now, you might say, well, is lean all I need? Well, no, you certainly need more than lean. I mean, depending, these days we have big data, we have analytics, very important, right? Algorithms seem to be taking over the world. Now it's deep learning, right? Deep learning. So, but here's the thing. With all of that, the human element's still there. We still have human customers, and we still have human employees. And as long as that's true, God willing, it'll be true for a long time. If you don't have in your strategy employee engagement and intense focus on the customer, then I suggest you are headed for trouble. So what I'd like you to do, think about your own company. What would it be like if you had lean in your own organization? What if your workforce was fully engaged? What if you could engage not just a few dozen minds, but a few thousand minds? How would that affect you? How would that affect your customers, your sales, your profits? Okay? And then let's think more generally about working adults, right? We who are working spend probably half of our waking hours at work. Okay? And yet, 2/3 of us don't even like going to work. Okay, what's that about? So what's that doing to us? What if we could get the other 2/3 engaged? A lot of workplaces, too, are not necessarily very nice places to work. They can be, a lot of fear and contention and intimidation. Who wants to work like that? What if we could get the other 2/3 engaged? What kind of a world would that be, right? How would that affect our health and well-being? How would that affect society? So, I think this is one of the reasons why we're so passionate about it. We've seen it. We know how, it's like a win-win-win-win-win. It's great for the employee, great for the company, great for the customer, great for society. What else do you need? So all I can say is, the bottom line message to business leaders is this. You don't have to beat up your employees to make money and to be successful in business. Okay, the best way to be successful is to empower your employees with sincere trust and respect in a way that leads to engagement. Okay? And if you can do that and build an engaged workforce and then focus them on exactly what the customer wants, you're going to be very hard to beat. So in the book, I've tried to show you how effective Lean is as a system to do that. I've tried to give you the concepts and the tools to help get you started. And I think the bottom line is if you want engaged workers, you have to empower them. And if you want to empower them, the best way to do that is with a Lean system. So with that, I thank you for coming, and maybe we have a little time for questions if you want. Or